The battlefield mercy. The sky burned with fire. Giant ships roared above the battlefield, dropping bombs and flashing beams of blue light. Smoke covered the ground like a thick blanket. Soldiers ran, shouted, and fell. The war between humans and the alien empire had reached its most brutal day. Near the edge of the battlefield, a young human boy lay in the dirt. His uniform was torn, his leg was bleeding, and his weapon was broken beside him. His name was Elian. He was only 16. Too young for war, too small for armor that didn't fit right, and now, too weak to stand. His unit had already retreated. The command shouted, "Fall back!" And everyone left. But Elian had tripped, hit by flying debris. No one saw him fall. No one came back for him. He tried to crawl. Every move sent pain through his leg. His hands shook. The ground around him was cracked and dark with ash. Above him, smoke hid the sun and made the air thick. Then, he heard footsteps. Slow. Calm. Confident. He turned his head and saw her. She walked through the smoke like a shadow with purpose. Tall, fierce, and covered in deep red armor with glowing lines that pulsed like a heartbeat. Her skin was pale silver. Her eyes, sharp and golden like fire. She was not just any alien soldier. She was a huntress. The kind they warned him about. The kind that never left survivors. She stopped in front of him. Her sharp blade was already drawn. It hummed softly in the quiet between bombings. Elian looked up, fear in his chest. But he didn't beg. His voice was broken, dry and barely more than a whisper. "Do it." She said nothing. Her golden eyes studied him not like prey but like a puzzle. Her blade moved slightly, but it did not strike. She tilted her head, her white hair moving with the wind. "You are not a soldier," she said finally, her voice smooth and strong. "I am," he answered. "Then why are you shaking?" "Because I'm scared." "Yet you look me in the eye," she said, stepping closer. Elian didn't move. He had no strength left to run or fight. All he had were his eyes and his voice. "I lost everything today." The alien huntress stood, in silence. She raised her blade. Elian closed his eyes. But no pain came. Instead, he felt the cold air shift near his cheek. He opened his eyes and saw her blade, now resting beside him, deep in the ground. She had stabbed the dirt, not him. She leaned down close enough that he could hear her breath. "Live," she whispered. "Come back to me stronger." Then she pulled her blade free and walked away, disappearing into the thick smoke. Elian lay there, stunned. For a long time, he didn't move. He didn't know if he was dreaming or dead. No soldier would leave an enemy alive. No huntress would spare a human. Yet, she had. Her words echoed in his mind. "Come back to me stronger." Why had she said that? What did she see in him? By nightfall, a scout team found Elian. They thought he was dead, but when he blinked, they shouted for help. He was rushed to a field base where medics wrapped his leg and gave him water. When a commander asked what happened, Elian said nothing. He kept her secret. The war still raged across stars and planets. Many humans died. Many aliens did too. But in one corner of the galaxy, a boy who had been spared was lying in a recovery bed, staring at the ceiling, and he made a promise. Next time, he wouldn't be the one on the ground. He would find her again, and when he did, he would be ready. The boy who trained in silence years passed like silent winds through forgotten valleys. But for Elian, time did not heal. It sharpened. After the battlefield, after her voice whispered into his soul, Elian returned to human space a different person. No longer just a boy who survived. No longer the frightened recruit who couldn't lift his rifle properly. The image of her, the alien huntress with eyes like burning stars, never left his mind. Even when the pain faded from his leg, her words still echoed louder than any scream he had heard during the war. "Come back to me stronger." That sentence haunted him. Not because it was a threat, but because it was a challenge. He didn't know why she spared him. Not truly. Maybe she saw weakness. Or maybe, just maybe, she saw something buried deeper, something he hadn't yet discovered in himself. So he began to train, not with anger, not with hate, but with something colder and more focused. At the edge of the outer colony named Ilaria 9, where the stars burned red and winds howled like beasts, Elian joined the harshest academy known to humans. A place where soldiers were made, not born. They called it the Anvil, because it broke the weak and forged the strong. From the moment he stepped into its gates, eyes turned toward him. He was younger than most, quieter, smaller. His past was unknown, his eyes always watching, always distant. While others laughed in the mess hall or bragged during drills, Elian stayed silent. He trained when others slept. He studied alien tactics when others joked around. He ran drills in the cold desert nights until his lungs burned and his muscles screamed. Instructors noticed, but they said nothing. They let him push himself. They were waiting to see if he would break. One day, during close combat sparring, Elian faced a taller cadet named Torvin. Torvin was known for beating his opponents without mercy. Most students feared him. When Elian stood across from him, the others whispered, betting how quickly Torvin would crush him. The whistle blew. Torvin rushed forward like a storm, fast, brutal, wild. But Elian didn't move, not until the last second. He dodged, twisted, countered. And when Torvin swung again, Elian locked his arm and brought him to the ground in a single, smooth motion. The entire room went quiet. Torvin blinked, confused, with Elian's knee against his chest. But instead of throwing the final punch, Elian stood up and walked away. He didn't smile. He didn't taunt. He just walked back to his place and waited for the next name to be called. Later, his instructor cornered him. "Why didn't you finish the fight?" Elian looked at him calm. "Because the fight was already over." The instructor's brow tightened. "You showed mercy. Someone once showed it to me." Those were the only words he offered. From that day, the other cadets didn't laugh at him anymore. They watched him differently. The instructors began assigning him harder missions, field simulations, leadership tests, ambush drills each time he passed, but his mind was never fully in the academy. It was elsewhere, drifting back to a memory made of fire and ash. The moment her blade stopped just above his face, the moment her voice shook the path of his life. Months later, during a night training simulation in the wilderness zone, Elian wandered farther than planned. The stars above were brighter here, untouched by the light of cities. He stood alone, looking up at them. "Where are you now?" he whispered. "Are you still fighting?" A shadow moved behind him. Just a bird. No threat. But his hand went to the knife at his belt out of instinct. He was no longer a boy in need of saving. He was a weapon, tempered by silence, shaped by purpose. Suddenly, an alarm echoed through the base. A scout ship had returned from the alien borders, and with it, urgent news. A new movement was rising under the alien empress. One of her closest generals, a feared commander known only by her warrior name Karila, had been sighted preparing for something massive. Elian froze when he heard that name. He didn't know it before, but now he did. Karila. His hands clenched slowly. If the reports were true, she was no longer a lone huntress. She was a leader, a queen of blades in her own right. He walked back into the academy halls, eyes colder than before. The instructors noticed it. Even the strongest cadets moved aside as he passed. One whispered, "He's different now." And another answered, "He's ready for something none of us understand." But Elian knew exactly what he was preparing, for he wasn't training to win medals. He wasn't pushing himself to be the best soldier. He was becoming the man she had seen in him that day. Soon, he would leave the academy. A test of blood and honor. The wind over Ilaria. 9 howled like a beast that had lost its mate. It tore through the iron towers of the academy, screeched past sleeping quarters and rattled the steel walls of the training grounds. Inside those walls, the final test was about to begin, the last step between a cadet and true command. Elian stood alone in the shadows of the arena gates. His armor was fitted now, not borrowed, not clumsy, but his. His body had grown lean and sharp, like a blade kept in cold fire. His face, once soft and full of fear, had become unreadable, not angry, not cruel, just silent, focused, like he had been carrying something heavy for too long, but refused to put it down. Instructors watched him from above, whispering to each other. He's not like the others. He doesn't fight for medals. He's waiting for something, or someone. The gates opened with a loud metal groan and light flooded in. Elian stepped forward. Inside the arena, 5 cadets stood waiting. They were hand-picked, not for fairness, but for violence. The trial was not just about winning. It was about surviving when the odds were twisted against you. A test to see if a leader could face overwhelming force without losing control. No one spoke. The match began. At once, they rushed him like a pack of wolves. From above, it looked unfair. 1 against 5. But Elian moved like he'd already lived through worse. His steps were calm, his strikes precise. He disarmed one, dodged the second, redirected the third into the fourth. Blood was spilled, but it was not his. His final opponent, a girl named Rayla, hesitated. She had trained beside him once, respected him, maybe even admired him, and now her hands trembled. Elian lowered his weapon. "I'm not your enemy," he said quietly. "But this is the test," she whispered. "Then fail it," he answered, "for something greater." And to the shock of everyone watching, she dropped her blade. Later, when the instructors gathered the cadets, one of them barked, "You were told to fight to the end," but Rayla raised her head. "He showed me a different kind of strength." They turned to Elian. "You refused to finish them." Again, he nodded. "Because real leaders don't need to crush others to rise. They need to lift." There was silence. Then the lead instructor, a war-hardened veteran with a face carved by battles, stepped forward. "You are no longer a cadet," he said. "You are a commander, but you carry something more than duty, boy. What drives you?" Elian looked up, and for the first time he spoke the truth. "An alien huntress once spared me when she had no reason to. She challenged me not with hate, but with honor. I trained to meet her again, not to kill her, but to answer that challenge." Some laughed quietly, others stared, but the instructor just nodded. "Then may your path find her," he said, "and may you both return changed." Days later, Elian stood before a transport ship bound for the Outer Rim. The war was not over. Though many battles had ended, whispers of the alien empress's expansion had returned, quiet, deadly, spreading through border colonies like a slow fire. Elian was given command of a small recon team. 5 men and women, each skilled, each tested. Their mission: enter the edge of alien space, make contact with local resistance groups, and locate signs of movement near the Crimson sectors, areas under a new rising commander named Karela. Name struck him like a whisper from the past. Karela. He didn't say anything to the team, didn't explain why his fingers curled into fists when he heard it. The ship launched into the void, sliding between stars like a blade in water. For hours there was silence. Deep space had a sound of its own, the kind that made hearts beat slower and memories rise louder. Elian sat alone near the viewing window, watching the stars slide past, and then a soft voice behind him. "Commander, you okay?" It was Rayla. He nodded. "Just thinking." "About her?" He didn't answer. She sat beside him. "I don't know who she is," Rayla said softly. "But whoever she is, she made you into something stronger than any of us." Elian looked at her and said the words he hadn't spoken aloud until now. "She didn't save me because I was special. She saved me so I could become something special." Rayla nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time to find her." Not to prove something, but to show her what you've become. Elian's eyes didn't blink, because deep in his soul, he felt it. She was waiting, and this time, he would not come crawling in the dirt. He would come standing tall, ready for whatever came next. Into the heart of the stars, they crossed the border in silence. The space between human territory and alien dominion was not marked by signs or walls, but by silence, an uneasy, empty silence that stretched for light years. It was known as the no man's drift, where sensors failed and old wrecks floated forever, reminders of battles no one wanted to remember. Elian stood at the edge of the command deck, his eyes locked on the dark stars beyond. The others in his recon team watched the controls, spoke in low voices, kept their weapons ready. They had trained for ambushes, for alien patrols, for brutal firefights. But Elian, he was waiting for something else. Not a trap, not death. He was waiting for her. The Yao, huntress with silver skin and burning golden eyes. The one who had changed his life not by killing him, but by letting him live. Her face had never left him. Her whisper had never faded. Come back to me stronger. His fingers touched the hilt of the curved blade he now carried. It was not human-made. It had no markings. It was a gift, taken from an old temple during a forgotten mission. Some believed it belonged to an ancient alien warrior. But to Elian, it was something more. It was a message. You will meet her again. Not as prey, but as equal. On the fourth day of deep space travel, the recon ship reached the edge of the Crimson Sectors, space controlled by Commander Karela, a name spoken by human scouts with fear and respect. Entire mining colonies had vanished under her command. Even human diplomats, brave and shielded by peace treaties, were turned away by her forces. Elian knew the name better than any of them. He had lived in its shadow for years. Their mission was to gather intel and extract a local informant, someone who had seen the movement of Karela's fleet. The location was a hidden moon called Elos, orbiting a dying star. The moon was rumored to be rich in ruins, old alien temples, forgotten energy sources, and maybe something more. The ship landed under cover of darkness, between the jagged stone cliffs of Elos. No patrols, no resistance. Only silence and stars above. The team moved out, weapons ready, eyes scanning every crack and corner. But Elian's heart beat differently, not with fear, with something colder, closer. The wind on Elos was strange, soft and warm, carrying a scent that didn't belong to stone or fire. It smelled like memory, like the air from the battlefield where he last saw her. As the team reached the edge of a ruined structure, the air suddenly changed. A flash of motion, the sound of metal sliding, and then ambush. Blades fell from the cliffs above. Alien warriors dropped in silence, moving like ghosts, surrounding them before a word could be spoken. The human squad raised their weapons, but it was too late. They were caught, hands bound. Gear stripped, no shots fired, no blood, just precision, discipline. A voice spoke from the shadows. Not loud, not cruel, just calm. Only one of you is the target. The rest are free to go. Elian looked up. The voice had weight, like it had traveled across years to find him. And when the figure stepped into view, everything else faded. It was her. Karela. She wore dark armor that shimmered with symbols of command. Her face was partly covered by a mask, but her eyes were the same. Golden. Burning. Ancient. She looked at him and the years melted away. His breath caught. You remembered? He said. Of course, she replied. His team looked confused. They had trained for war. Not for this. Not for two people looking at each other like ghosts from another life. What do you want from me? Elian asked. She stepped closer, her voice steady. I want to see what became of the boy I spared. Elian's jaw tightened. You already saw. No, she said. I saw a beginning. Now I want to see the end. She turned to her warriors. Release the others. Bring him to the stone chamber. The team hesitated, but Rayla stepped forward. We're not leaving him, but Elian held up a hand. Go. This is my path. She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. He followed Corella through the ruins. No chains, no threats. Just the sound of her boots echoing against the broken stone. They entered a chamber deep below the surface. Torches burned with blue flames. Strange runes lined the walls. At the center, 2 blades rested on a stone altar. She turned to him. You trained. I can see it. Your stance, your balance, your stillness, all of it shaped by war. Elian said, nothing. But strength is more than skill, she said. It is purpose. It is the reason behind the blade. She reached up, removed her mask. Her face had changed. Older. A scar now marked her left cheek, jagged, deep. I was punished for letting you live, she said softly. They called it weakness, but I knew. I knew you were not done. He stepped forward. And now? She pointed to the blades. Now we finish what we started. Elian looked at the weapons. His hand went to his belt, and slowly, he placed his own blade beside them. Then we fight. She smiled, but it was not cruel. It was proud. Good, she said. Show me the man you became. The truth beneath her mask, the chamber fell into silence. Not the silence of fear, not the silence before a strike. This was a different kind of stillness, deep, heavy, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Blue fire flickered along the stone walls, casting long shadows that danced over the ancient runes. Between the 2 warriors, the blades on the altar shimmered faintly, waiting. Elian stared at her. Corella, alien commander. The one who had spared him when she should have ended him. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times. In his dreams, they fought. In his memories, she haunted him. In his training, he chased her shadow. But now that she stood before him, mask removed, scar visible, her eyes not blazing with rage but filled with quiet weight, something inside him shifted. Before we fight, Elian said softly, tell me the truth. Why me? Corella didn't answer right away. She turned, walked to the edge of the room and touched the wall gently. Her fingers brushed over the carved symbols that had been there long before either of their people reached this moon. This place, she said, was once a hall of judgment. Warriors came here to face their truth, not in blood but in silence. She turned back to him. I brought you here because this is where I faced mine. Elian watched her. She moved differently now, not like a commander in charge of an empire's firepower, but like someone who carried something invisible and heavy. After I spared you, she continued, they marked me a traitor. They stripped me of rank, humiliated me in front of my kind. Not because I failed in battle, but because I showed mercy. Elian stepped closer. But you came back. She nodded once. I disappeared for years, trained in silence, took missions no one else would. Won wars no one believed could be won. Not for revenge, but to reclaim my voice. And when I returned, they listened. Not because I shouted, but because I had become something they feared. Elian's voice was steady. Something they respected. Yes, she said. But only after I gave up the part of me that once hesitated. He tilted his head. So why hesitate now? Why bring me here? Why not kill me in the dust outside, like before? Corella looked at him. Her golden eyes were no longer hard. They held something else now. Because you carry a question I could never answer, she said. I spared you because I saw myself in you. I don't know why. It was instinct, foolish maybe. But in that moment your eyes didn't beg. They didn't hate. They simply accepted death. She paused. And that scared me. Elian felt his chest tighten. She had feared him. But now, she said, I need to know what you became. What I created the moment I chose not to strike. She walked to the altar, picked up one of the blades. He stepped forward and took the other. No ceremony, No ritual, just silence. They faced each other, not as hunter and prey, not as alien and human, but as two beings shaped by a single decision. "This isn't war," she said. "I know," he replied. "This is truth." Their blades touched, not in violence but in greeting. Then they moved. The duel was quiet. No screams, no taunts, no fury, just precision, focus, honor. Their blades clashed with purpose, one not trying to destroy the other, but to understand. It was as if each strike asked a question and each block offered an answer. Elian was fast, sharper than she remembered. He moved like wind, light on his feet, never wasting a motion. Karela was stronger, her strikes heavy with experience, her defense like stone. But she did not overpower him, and he did not try to escape her. The fight went on for minutes that felt like hours. Their arms tired, their breath grew heavier, but neither yielded. Finally they locked blades, faces inches apart. "You're not the same boy," she whispered. "You're not the same huntress." They broke apart, stepped back, blades lowered. Karela looked down at the floor, at the scattered marks their blades had left. "I came here to prove that sparing you wasn't weakness," she said. "But now I see. It was the only thing that made me strong." Elian dropped his blade. It clanged softly on the stone. "You didn't create a monster," he said. "You gave me a reason to become something better." Karela's hands trembled slightly, the first time he saw her lose control. Not from fear, but from relief. For years, she had wondered what her choice had done. Now, the answer stood before her. Alive. Strong. Not to kill her, but to complete the path they started. She stepped forward, raised a hand, and touched his shoulder gently. "We're not enemies anymore," she said. "No," Elian answered. "We never were." Above the chamber, the wind shifted. The stars outside realigned slowly in the night sky. And two warriors, once separated by war, now stood together, no longer bound by past choices, but by the truth they had forged through fire. The warrior he became. For a long time, they said nothing. Elian and Karela stood side by side in the ancient stone chamber, the echo of their duel still lingering in the air like fading thunder. The torches burned low now. The fire didn't roar. It hummed, soft and steady, like it too had watched what happened and now chose to rest. She had tested him, not just his skill, but his soul. And he had answered, not with hate, not with revenge, but with something rarer. Clarity. Karela's hand fell from his shoulder. She stepped away and picked up the blade he had dropped. "This belonged to an exile," she said, tracing the curve of the weapon. "A warrior who chose peace and was buried for it." Elian took a breath. Maybe he wasn't wrong. Maybe he was just ahead of his time. She looked at him, eyes narrowed. "You sound more like us than your own kind." "Maybe that's why I survived," he said quietly. "Maybe I never fit anywhere until now." A silence settled between them again. Not cold, but heavy with understanding. But that silence didn't last. A sudden noise came through her earpiece. Sharp. Panicked. Karela turned sharply and spoke, in her native tongue. Elian didn't understand the words, but the tone, it was unmistakable. Something was wrong. "What is it?" he asked. She didn't answer at first. Her golden eyes stared past him. Then, "They're coming." "Who?" "My own." Moments later, Karela's ship lit up above the moon's surface, beaming a red signal into the sky. From the outer ridges, her elite guard, the ones who had followed her for years, now approached fast and armed. But they were not moving with caution. They were moving with judgment. She grabbed a data scroll and handed it to Elian. "Take this, proof of what we discussed, the locations of hidden fleets, war plans. If I don't walk out of this, you need to." Elian stared at the scroll. "You're not going to die for me." "This isn't about you anymore," she said. "They think I've turned soft, They've seen the signs, they've read the silence. Then prove them wrong, he snapped. I already did, she said, stepping forward closer than she had before. The moment I chose to fight you with honor instead of hatred. The moment I let you live not once, but twice. Her voice lowered. But this time you don't get to walk away. Not unless you fight beside me. Elian clenched his fists. I'm not leaving. Good, she said. Then let them see the warrior you became. Outside, the guards formed a circle. There were 8 of them, strong, fast, loyal. Karila raised her hand. Stand down, she commanded. But the leader, a giant alien with black markings across his armor, stepped forward. You trained us to follow strength, and now you bring a human here? Alone? He is not a boy, she said. He's a weakness, the guard spat, and weakness dies. He raised his weapon, but Elian was already moving. He didn't wait for orders, didn't look for permission. He charged forward, fast, silent, controlled, and disarmed the warrior with one motion. Spun him around, dropped him with a precise elbow to the back of the neck. The others hesitated. Karela didn't. She was beside him instantly, her blade slicing through 2 more, not to kill, but to disable. What followed was chaos. But not panic. A battle in the dust and fire. Elian moved like the man she had once imagined. Not just trained, but driven. Not just strong, but sure. Every strike was clean. Every step had meaning. He wasn't fighting to survive anymore. He was fighting to protect her. The last guard standing lunged, but Karela stopped him with a single punch to the chest that sent him crumbling. The wind went still again. Elian stood in the center of the fallen, breathing hard. Not one dead, only broken pride. The circle had closed around them, but they had shattered it. Karela looked at him, her eyes unreadable. You've become more than I hoped, she whispered. You're not alone anymore, he said, and then behind them a transmission came through the ship's speaker. A voice. Cold, powerful, female. The Empress. Commander Karela. You were warned. Now you will be replaced. Karela froze. Elian stepped forward. She saw us. Karela turned, her face calm. No, she feared us. He looked at her. Then let's give her something to be afraid of. They didn't speak again for a while, but when they did, it wasn't as commander and human, not as enemy and ally. They stood as warriors. And from that day forward, the galaxy would remember. The moment an alien commander and a human boy once spared in war stood together, blades drawn, backs straight, eyes forward, against an empire too afraid to understand what they had become. The peace forged in fire. The warship arrived like a god of metal. It moved slowly above the sky of Elos, blotting out the moons, casting a long, cold shadow over the ruins below. The air itself felt heavier. The Empress's dreadnought, the flagship of the alien empire, had not moved in over a decade. Until now, it wasn't here for conquest. It was here for punishment. Inside the old temple, Elian and Karela stood side by side. No words passed between them. There was no need. What they were about to do would either echo across history or be erased in a single moment. The transmission came through again. Commander Karela, surrender the human. You have violated your oath. Your rank is void. Your name will be erased. Resist and be destroyed. Karela stepped forward and pressed the comm. Her voice was calm, but behind the calm was something stronger than steel. I did not train my warriors to fear humans. I trained them to learn from them. There was silence, and then, you disappoint us. Karela turned to Elian. This is our chance, not just to fight, but to speak. Elian's brow furrowed. To who? They already made their choice. Maybe, she said, but not all of them. Not yet. An hour later, they stood on the surface just beneath the massive ship. Alien drop pods had landed. Soldiers formed ranks. Weapons were drawn, but no one fired. From the lead vessel, the Empress's, high speaker descended. Her armor was black as space, her face hidden behind a ceremonial mask. Her voice cut through the air like a blade. "You were warned, Karela." Karela did not bow. "You made me a weapon, but weapons rust in peace, and I chose to grow." The speaker's gaze shifted to Elian. "And what of this human? A pet? A tool, or something worse?" Elian stepped forward. He did not wear full armor. He carried no gun, only the blade she once spared him from. He raised it, then placed it on the ground, not in surrender, in challenge. "You built an empire on fear," he said, "but fear breaks. Honor does not." Murmurs rippled through the alien ranks. The speaker's voice grew louder. "You think mercy makes you strong? Then prove it. Fight our chosen. Win, and you walk free. Lose, and you both die." They didn't expect her to accept. But Karela did. She nodded once and said, "I accept." "But he fights with me," gasps echoed. The Empress's voice came through from above, this time speaking directly. "So be it." From the warship, a massive armored warrior stepped forward. Over 7 feet tall, 4 arms, enhanced, genetically engineered to serve only the Empress's will. Elian's breath caught for a second. Karela looked at him. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "You said, 'Come back to me stronger,'" he replied. "You didn't say stop." The battle began in silence. The Chosen charged, swinging 2 blades at once while launching spikes from shoulder cannons. Elian rolled to the side, striking low. Karela blocked a wide arc with both arms, staggering back, blood already drawn. From her shoulder, they fought together like they had trained for years, alien and human. Every move complemented the other. Elian ducked, and Karela struck. Karela jumped, and Elian caught her foot to launch her higher. They were not fighting to survive. They were fighting to be seen. The Chosen warrior roared, slamming the ground, knocking them both down. Elian groaned, vision blurred as Karela crawled toward her blade. The Chosen charged toward her, but Elian was faster. He didn't strike from the front. He threw his blade into the Chosen's leg, just enough to slow it. Karela rose, twisted, and struck upward, clean through its chest. The Chosen fell, and the battlefield went still. No one moved. Not the soldiers, not the speaker, not the Empress above. Karela stood, her blade red with victory. Elian stood beside her, bleeding but unbowed. And then, slowly, one of the alien soldiers knelt, then another, and another, until all of them were bowing, not to defeat, but to truth. The speaker's voice returned, but softer. "What are your orders, Commander?" Karela looked at Elian. "Begin talks," she said, "with the humans, with their leaders. I will not serve a throne of fear." The transmission cut, and the dreadnought turned and left, not in rage, but in silence. That night, under the sky of Elos, Elian sat by a small fire. Karela joined him, her arm wrapped in bandages, her expression quiet. "You fought well," she said. "You spared me," he replied. "I only returned the favor." She looked at him, really looked at him, as if seeing the boy she spared all those years ago, and now the man who stood beside her. "What now?" she asked. Elian smiled faintly. "You told me to come back stronger. I did. But now, I think it's your turn." She laughed softly, for the first time in years. "Then let's build something new, together." And beneath the stars, where once stood a battlefield, now began a peace shaped not by power, but by mercy, honor, and the courage to grow beyond war.